Here. All right. Hey everyone, this is the Jim and Jim Q&A, or reverse that, Q&A with Jim and Jim, one of the two. It's a long week. Uh, Thank you everyone for joining us here. If you can, if you're here, cool. Turn your camera on. That's kind of the whole point of we're all here to see each other's faces. Again, this is for self-storage, so if you're not here for self-storage, you're in the wrong group, so go somewhere else. But this is total just kind of free flow. Questions, comments, anything you have going on, bring it up. Me and Jim can do our best to answer, but this is a collective effort. That's why we're all here. So we all have our own unique perspectives and experiences that we can shed some light on some whatever else you have going on in your storage world. So thank you again for everyone showing up. So hey Jim, how's it going?
Good, bud. Thank God it's Friday. I told my wife, I parked in the driveway last night. I said, I am not leaving this weekend. And I already have 3 things I got to do now. So it's like,
You got that honey to-do list?
no, yeah, some of that and some of this. And it's just, I have an appointment this afternoon I forgot all about. It's like, oh, so.
That's how it goes. Remember last time we were talking, I kept coughing up a lung, and you're like, you might want to get checked out. I had COVID.
Yeah, you said that.
Yeah, I took a test like 2 hours after we got done. I'm like, let me just check that off the list. Nope, it came back positive. So I had to isolate for a few days. I still don't know what the rules are anymore. Is it 10 days, 2 weeks, 4 days, 24 hours? I have no idea. I just locked myself in my room for a couple days and called it good.
Yeah. Hey, on a separate note, I see the Utah hockey team won their first game as a Utah hockey team.
Yeah, we do. Sorry, I'm not that enthused because my wife is the man in this relationship, and she loves sports. I mean, you name it, any sport, she's got all the NBA thing, we stream soccer, has to watch NFL, has to watch college football.
Sorry,
Like,
dude. Soccer's not a sport here in the States. I'm sorry.
I know. She's like, oh, I'm gonna watch.
I live in Dallas where the world headquarters, what is that? The museum for all the awards and all the stuff is in my hometown here. So
Yeah.
I feel like if they have a museum for awards, like the Hall of Fame, that's what it's called. The Hall of Fame is in my hometown. So if there's a Hall of Fame, it should count.
Over in Europe, yeah, here. Soccer is one of those, I cannot watch soccer. It's like watching golf.
I know.
They're the 2 sports I cannot watch for the life of me. You could pay me $1 million, I wouldn't watch a game.
So I'll piss you off.
I never did until Ted Lasso. Is that okay?
Hey, that's
I love Ted Lasso so much that now
sports.
I'm like, soccer's okay.
I played soccer for most of my childhood, all the way until I was like 14 years old. So, tread lightly, Jim.
Yeah, no, soccer is my life right now with my son. That's all we do right now is the competitive club soccer. But no, now that she likes hockey, that's just one more thing to add to the list of her watching and stuff. So we'll see.
I can't wait till they name the team officially because
I know we're the Utah Hockey Club, real original. So
I think they're going to go with Yeti.
Now, you were talking about that before. I don't know if is that a real thing or is that just a total?
No, that's one of them. That's one they're talking about. So
all right, we'll see.
Look at Jennifer Downer sitting there on her balcony with the sun behind her. She's recovering from Georgia, South Carolina. Too much fun.
Someone sent me, who was it? Again, I know we're just kind of BSing there for a minute, but again, questions, comments, whatever you got for your storage world, yeah, put it in the chat and we'll bring you up. But who was it? I can't remember now. Someone said that my doppelganger was hanging around some storage site. And she brought it up to him, going, "You look like Jim Ross." She's like, "I've been told that by several people now. Who is Jim Ross?" Well, she sent me like a video of him singing karaoke of Elton John. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like me. Yeah, not me.
So yeah, this week I had the privilege of talking to the Coast Management Group out of Washington State. And, Pam's on here from there, and I asked Pam, just to your knowledge, I remember I asked that question about your length of stay for your properties, and nobody really had the answer. Dave sent me one yesterday for me to do for him, and I looked at it for him. The length of stay, I'm trying to figure out which property it is here. Hold on one second here. It was American Heritage Mini Storage is your store, right?
No,
Jim,
it's a sister store,
okay.
but that's
Jim,
one of ours.
This property, Jim, has a 37.3 month length of stay.
Nice.
I was looking at it last night. They have 116 people who have been there for 81 months.
Wow.
I wonder if it's like larger units because that totally
That's-
skews the
Yeah.
margins sometimes. 'Cause I just noticed that with my larger size units, they stay forever.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, the
RVs, I
one,
think, do too, Jim, because
Yeah.
they have to, right? If your
Yeah.
HOA doesn't allow it, and if you own it, you gotta store it.
True. Yeah.
I looked, the one person has paid them over $21,000 in rent.
Wow.
It's okay. I'm
And
gonna. I'm
then I
not,
looked
not,
at
not
it.
to one up you, but I'm gonna pull some numbers and show you the site
Yeah.
that I've ran forever. It is. I think I've told you before. I've had to cap it off at like 4.5 years because the
Mhm.
numbers just don't make sense.
Well, even looking at their
Yeah.
website number, their website traffic from the one, and again, they've only been on the website, not long, but their average just for website rentals is like 19 months.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I showed Dave last night how to run a couple reports out of SiteLink and just do it himself real quick. And he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh man, I'm gonna do it for all my stores." So yeah, we were talking, and we actually had my company meeting this week, and we were talking about the importance of how we've been talking, Jim, about how everything's, I don't want to say down from previous years, but we're down, right? We're back to the new normal.
Sure.
So in 2024, when I looked at numbers for my meeting when I was putting it together, we had find it here real quick. So in 2023, from January 1st to September 30th of 2023, we had 7,100 inquiries, right? Same time frame, same stores, 2024, 6,290. We were down almost 825 inquiries year over year.
Yeah.
That's telling.
And the same thing, our rentals are down. Now it's interesting, our rentals are down about 427 year over year, but my closing percentage is like 39.6 to 38.7. So my closing percentage is right around the same that we're getting, we're closing ones we're getting. So I was pointing to the managers that need to make sure that we're on every time that phone rings or whatever. You got to be on it to track that inquiry.
Yep.
Yeah. I always
see
look
Eve-
at.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh.
Well, I was gonna say, I see Eva Chavez is on here, and I was gonna ask her if that, hi Eva, if that is like what you're seeing too, for him to go down by nearly, I mean, that's a lot. Is that what you're seeing as well? You're muted, love.
In terms of like occupancy, kind
No,
of
No,
no,
the inquiries
inquiry
from
traffic.
yeah, just the
Oh.
traffic.
Sorry, I was kind of I was kind of looking at something else. I do apologize. I mean, I was just the industry is a little bit slow this season. I'm not sure exactly if we're talking about inquiries coming in from online from your rental reservations and stuff like that. That has just been like minimal the past 2 months across pretty much the entire industry. I have like almost a provider in every state at this point, and it's just been like last month was a little bit better, but this month we're kind of starting to see it peter out again. It's just been kind of more of a fluctuation than I've ever seen in previous years. Like it's literally 1 month will be like we'll get really good leads, we'll get really good increase, and then the next month is dead flat. And the worst part about it is that we're getting a ton of move outs right now. And they're not moving anywhere else. They're not moving to another facility. They're just leaving the industry. So I kind of made a joke the other day and I said the Extra Space is starting off their unit so low because they're putting people on a financial plan to get back into the storage industry. And then they raise their rates so quickly afterwards. It's like within 2 months, you're double at 14. Because I think one of my clients has like a $7 unit, a 5x10 $7 unit that they're competing against for an Extra Space.
That's in $7.
$7.
Crazy.
That's okay. That's nuts.
Even
I've
been
low, but
tracking
not $7.
Jim, so how's your inquiries? Are you down over year over year?
Oh, it is. Yeah. I mean, this entire year has just been flatlined. It really has. And again, this always comes down to that's like what Eva's on here. That's when you start looking at okay, what can we do to get the phone to ring more? Because again, we get the phone to ring. We're we're closing them, but you got to
Mhm.
stand out from the next guy down the road. And I think people are getting a little more sophisticated than they have been in years past. Um, getting the websites easier and get more eyeballs on it. And of course, we're all feeling the pinch from the REITs when we're competing against those guys. So those two factors alone, I think just the competition overall is kind of up in their game a little bit. So that just adds to the competition of standing out.
Hey, I just saw Dave Cooper hop on. Dave, how are you in Florida? Can you unmute, Dave?
Hey, Jim, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you down there?
Doing good. Thank you for asking. Sorry, I have two different mute buttons on my mic. We got power back overnight, so life is good. I was able to take a shower this morning and getting back to normal and catching up on emails since, well, Tuesday.
When
So,
you
yeah.
got like 975 emails?
No, it really wasn't that bad. It was about 430 something, I think. So pretty good. Yeah, it's still pretty bad. A lot of our neighbors do not have power, which is kind of bizarre to me. I always thought power came on and off in grids, but apparently it's down to the individual house because a lot of our neighbors do not have power. So we're pretty fortunate, and hopefully it stays on.
Well, I'm glad you're doing well. I was talking to Brandon about you yesterday. Neither one had heard, so we're cool. So.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. It's just been like I said, we had a lot of people come here to hunker down for the storm. So it was just a matter of just trying to get everything put back together since last night. I'm pretty tired, but looking forward to catching up and getting back on a regular schedule this weekend. But thanks for asking, Jim.
Cool.
Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Jim Ross, the interesting thing, when I was preparing for my meeting, I also was looking, we talk a lot about Veritech and taking advantage of every opportunity you can to get a little bit more.
Yeah.
So 2024 through the same time frame, 2,900 rentals, 885 of them were Veritech upgrades. So about 30% of the rentals were upgrades to the tune of $12,275. That's going to be a recurring number.
That's
And
great.
it was really interesting that,
and again, we're just basically just showcasing good, better, best, giving them the option to choose. So
yep. And the interesting part of that, 234 of them were online rentals that took the upgrade themselves without ever talking to anybody. So having that on your website is critical. Shannon, that leads me to a question for you. When, as a call center, and you guys are taking calls for people all over the country,
Mhm.
and you have a client that does the good, better, best,
Mhm.
how do you guys train your agents to be able to sell the better ones online over the phone when
Yep.
somebody's always calling looking for the cheapest price?
Well, I will say that I don't know that they are always looking for the cheapest price anymore because we start with features. You need climate control. Did you want that to be right by the elevator? We ask questions that we know we have the answer to from the descriptions that are provided to us. You guys set all that up in the SMS. But our experience is that people choose the one in the middle mostly rather than the cheaper one.
We're seeing a lot of that too. We're seeing a lot of the better rates being taken for that. And actually, it's ironic. Like if we only have one unit come back, what comes back is better. And I was at the one conference and talking to a couple of colleagues. They're like, if you got one unit back, you come back as best. I'm like, well, yes, no. So we're trying to monitor that to see how that's going. So we're going to do an A/B test on that to see how it works a little bit. But
Yeah.
is anybody else seeing those kind of numbers with the A, or who's using value pricing,
using it,
and B, anybody using that, seeing those kind of results? I mean, Dave, you got a different type of value pricing. You're not strictly on Veritech, but you got upgradable units as well, right?
We keep ours statically set between standard and premium pricing, but yes.
Are you seeing the same kind of upgrade opportunities for your premium units?
Pretty mixed review, actually. To be honest with you, yes, we seeing it. Not to. Sorry, I think I'm having some mic problems here. We're seeing it, but probably not to the same extent as some others.
And I'm just real quick. It's human psychology. Not even just storage, just human psychology and pricing. If you have two options, people are just going to go for the lower one. If you have three, good, better, best, they go for the middle. That's just, that's just psychology. So
think about us, Jim, when we're getting quotes for our properties for lawn maintenance or snow removal or any project we're doing. We never take the lowest one. We usually take the middle one,
That's what I mean.
even with us.
It's true. That's
Yeah,
why
I
Starbucks
don't care
came
what
out
the
with
service
third
is or what the
size.
product is. That's just how we're wired. So there's study after study that proves that. I had a quick question for you, Shannon. So last time we talked, you guys were just about to do one of the shows and start talking about the live switch and being able to do the video.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to that?
Oh my gosh, that was so much fun. You guys know we're partnered with Live Switch, which is just an online platform, as well as KISS, which is like a physical kiosk type platform. And so at our show, we had a KISS kiosk there with one of our video agents just available. And I think Jim Mooney will back me up here. People kind of thought, because he's just sitting there waiting for someone to come up and speak with him. And people were surprised when he would go, "That is a nice shirt you're wearing." And they would be like, "Oh my gosh, that's a real guy." But the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. I think right now we're still so new in that there's probably not going to be a huge run on the volume of that. But I think from a call center perspective, one of the things that we are always doing is keeping an eye to the future. And while that may not be the total volume right now, 10 years from now, I wonder if there will be a phone call. You think 2? Oh, Jim. Well, if so, we're ready, my friend.
No, that's why I bring it up, because I love that kind of stuff. I was talking with James about a year ago with Live Switch, and just playing around with it and trying to do some stuff internally. So seeing the call center actually utilize that is, yeah.
Yep.
I would
awesome.
add to that, Shannon, specifically, and just to identify myself, this is Garrett.
Hi, Garrett.
I would add to that, we actually have been using Live Switch at some remote properties. It is quite interesting because they just literally scan a QR code and it connects them directly to an agent. At properties where there is an overhead issue and it's not super large, maybe it's an annex site, it makes a lot of sense to use something like Live Switch, maybe integrated with a call center. I will tell you that in some markets, fantastic. It goes really well. It's really fantastic technology. And then in some markets, we've seen it hasn't done quite as well. So I do think it really depends on the socioeconomics of who you're dealing with. Whether
You
you
mean
have
from a usage perspective, Garrett?
yes, from a usage
okay.
perspective, who your clientele is, really knowing who your clientele is will really make a huge difference. But I do think there's a lot of potential there, especially when you look at sites that maybe are annex sites or smaller sites that do not have a person full-time standing in that particular office. So I will tell you there has been some success levels with it. Rented quite a few units at some properties, and then had some where not so much. So I think it's one of those ever-evolving technologies that is definitely something for the future.
Yeah. Curious, Garrett, who do you have who's answering that? Is it the manager at the
Yes.
facility?
Correct. So basically what happens is the way that we had it tied in is that we had it go to either the manager or we had somebody in our corporate office who was a manager previously that will get the Live Switch notification and immediately be able to talk to them and walk them through the process.
What's been the main source of traffic? Is it for rentals? Is it current customers asking questions? What's the main purpose for?
It's both. We would have thought that it would have been a lot more just people walking up to the door, stopping by, driving by, and existing customers asking questions, although a lot of them know they can pick up the phone and call. But I would say it's probably 50-50. We get about half the inquiries are customers that exist and click on it, or maybe actually it's probably 60-40. I'd say 60% of the inquiries are about a unit and about 40% are in existing customers. So we've seen some pretty good success. We've had more remote facilities, and I wouldn't say super remote, but they're 5, 6, 7 miles down the road from the main property. Got a large property, and then you have more like an annex. And we've actually seen some decent movement where we started at 60%, particularly at a property's occupancy. And over the course of 3 months, we've been able to get the property up about 12% using
Wow.
Live Switch. Because what we were doing was they're missing a lot of traffic that was driving by because we didn't have a manager on site particularly. So I think it does make a difference.
That's a
Yeah.
great soundbite there, Garrett. I love it.
Yeah, I gotta play around with it more. I feel guilty I haven't as much as I should. I mean, and I just put it in chat. What we're talking about is Live Switch. It's basically it's a QR code people can scan
Yep.
and it'll automatically link them up with a video of whoever's on the other side, one of your managers, whoever, someone from the home office, that kind of thing to help with customer service. So I just put a link of a video I made with James 10 months ago, something like that. That kind of gives you the overview. It's really cool. It's a great idea, and I think there's a number of ways to utilize it, frankly. So
Yeah, I mean, we're using it in several different ways just with our current clients on that, because you can obviously just have it on your website as a, click here from your phone, right, to talk to somebody. But also have multiple different kinds of QR codes for different kinds of things. We have clients who put signage inside of the unit that essentially says, when you move out, click on this QR code to follow these instructions. Because that's a very different kind of call, like Garrett was talking about, than if it's on the front door and you're saying, if you're interested in renting, click here to talk to somebody, for sure.
I gotta play
Well,
with
the
it.
other thing I want to add real quick that
Yeah.
you brought up an important point. I specifically also had a QR code made that's on the side of some of the buildings to immediately report a maintenance problem that happens. Got water in your unit,
Ooh.
door gets messed up. Please click on this, and it can immediately go to a person so we can address something and not have to wait a day or two or whatever it is when somebody does a walkthrough of the property. So that was the other way that we've actually used it in a very effective manner.
Yeah, that's great. And Jim, that actually will probably eventually replace the multiple phone number tracking mechanism thing.
Yeah.
Where what were they calling about, right? What button did they push? It'll be
Mhm.
what QR code did they scan on? You'll know that they were scanning for a maintenance issue, or they were scanning the rental QR or the move out QR, whatever.
I'll be interested. Have you talked to James from Live Switch the last couple
Yep,
weeks?
James, yeah.
Have you talked to him the last couple weeks though?
Oh, well, I know Jennifer did. She,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, just
I've
because
spoken with him several
he lives
times.
in Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His home got a little bit of flooding in their basement, nothing too major, but
Mm.
his community is in bad shape. He's actually working in Raleigh during the week because they still don't have internet, so he's having to leave his family during the week and then get home on the weekend. So we're actually connecting this afternoon, and I'll get an update, but it's just really sad.
Tell him we're thinking about him. Yeah, I saw that.
I will.
Ugh.
So Shannon or Jennifer, I got a question for you that came out of my company meeting this week, who I was doing a lot of digging and research, and we always talk about the call centers, the importance of them. I realized that 33% of the payments that the call center takes for me happens after hours. Is that a number that you guys see a lot of? Because we were talking about the importance, and again, Georgia, South Carolina, Jennifer was there. We were talking to people, and I talked to one guy who doesn't have one, and he's got it kind of forwarding to his cell phone, and then, if he's out or whatever, and he answers. I'm like, why don't you do this? And we were talking about that, and maybe start digging into some of the statistics of how many leads are coming in after hours, how many payments are coming in after hours, how many problem calls are coming in after hours. And I talked to one guy.
We definitely do that, Jim. And I will just say 80% of what we do is during your business hours. So that's, I mean, obviously that means 20% is outside. But the thing that's telling to me about that is a lot of times people will go, oh, no, we don't need any help because we got a guy, we have office hours, right? And my point to that would be, you might, but 20% of your calls are going to be outside of that time. And even though you do, 80% of your calls are going to come during the time when you have your guy. because it's just inevitable. If you've got somebody standing there, the phone is gonna ring while they're on the phone, or they're down the street, or in a unit or whatever.
I did a mystery shop last week, Shannon, to a store I was curious about. And I called and they said, hey, I'm not going to say the name of the company. Hey, can you hold 1 second, please? I said, absolutely. They put the phone down on the counter and I heard their conversation. So I timed it. I was on hold for 7 minutes listening to a conversation, and it wasn't even a work conversation.
Oh, no.
Oh,
And when she finally picked back the phone, I said, hey, I'm just trying to get a price for the storage unit. And she said, we're full. We don't have anything to rent right now. Bye.
All right,
I got-
well,
was this like a competitor you're secret shopping?
It was basically somebody I'm trying to work with.
Okay, they need
needs
help.
your help desperately,
yes.
clearly.
Well, and when I called the person I was working with, they're like, they're one of my better managers.
Oh,
That's a low bar.
So I can, I mean, we train our team that if you're on the phone or with somebody in the office and that phone rings, I don't care if it's me, I don't care who it is. You let it go, pay the attention to the person you're dealing with. And if the person in front of you says, hey, don't you need to get that? Say, no worries. I got a call center backing me up. They'll answer the phone for me and I'll take care of them after I help you out. So we acknowledge to the person in front of us that, yes, that call is important, but somebody's going to answer the phone for me so I can continue to help you.
Ugh. I think I threw up my mouth a little bit.
I
when you said
know.
that. That's terrible. Hey, I don't want to go off and forget this question up. Pamela Shepard, jump on. You had a question about resources for training or something like that?
I do. We had our big training this week, as Jim said, and it's for managers, area managers. And it just always strikes me that the assistants who are back in the office doing the heavy lifting, need resources as well, if not, more than we do. So I'm just wondering how people, we bring in, I've got somebody now that's younger, doesn't have a lot of business experience. She's been in retail, that sort of thing. And I'm just wondering what other people do. She really needs some good phone skills, maybe a script, maybe. And I'm just kind of at my wit's end because it's like 11 o'clock at night and I'm thinking about this.
Okay, I don't want to throw any companies under the bus, but what company is it? Is it
My
Magic?
my
Is it-
storage,
Yeah.
Skagit self-storage.
How many sites do they have? Locations?
Well, we just have that's just the one location, but I'm with Coast Property Management with Dave Reed.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so I did talk to Dave, Pamela, about making sure that you guys got a quality ops manual, procedural manual, because you have operation manual, you got procedural manuals. And the thing I've learned over the years, and Jim, you'll concur with me, everybody learns differently. Some people are very visual learners. Some people are hands-on. Some people can see it once it's done. So when I've done a lot of my, I have created dozens and dozens of cheat sheets in SiteLink for people how to do things. And I usually take screenshots and have arrows kind of going because some people like to read the words and some people like to see the pretty pictures. But everybody learns differently. So making sure you guys have that. As far as the script, you can find script anywhere for that. I like to have I don't call it a script per se. It's more of a guideline because you can always tell when somebody is reading off the script. And I'll give you a prime example. I was at a conference recently and a colleague of mine was very nervous about speaking, and she had read her PowerPoint. And I told her, I said, look, you were much better when you were kind of, going off script a little bit and being more personable than when she was trying to make sure she read every word. And I can always tell, Jim, you probably too, when you call a customer and they're sticking to the script so much that they won't let you ask a question. So you want to have good guidelines. There's a lot of them out there. I know Dave and I have talked a little bit about doing another session with your guys, and Also,
Do they-
you know, in-person stuff. So there's a lot
I
of
s-
tools out there for you.
Yeah, I really shouldn't use the word script.
It's a framework.
What I think about bullet points, really,
Exactly.
that, and that, once you've been doing it a while, you just get into a flow and you know that you've hit all the bullet points.
But
So-
to kind of address your question about like training and kind of ongoing training, I mean, it sounds like you guys are you did like an in-person thing, which is
Mhm.
awesome. That's a hell of a lot more than what most people do. Is that like a yearly thing, bi-yearly thing?
Correct, every
Yearly?
year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you got to set kind of those expectations within that company culture of like just doing this, frankly. I mean, that those managers they should all be on these kind of things to
Absolutely.
to learn and ask questions, but it should also be within the company itself. That's how you set the company cultures and those their specific SOPs and things like that. But that's
Jim, I can tell you when I was on it with them last week. Actually, it was this week. It was the other day.
Yeah.
Lost track of days.
blur, I know.
One of the questions I always ask, and I did this in Georgia, South Carolina. I got a picture on a slide. Let me see if I can share it real quick here. See if you guys can see this.
You should be able to share. There you go.
I am. So you guys see this screen here?
Yep.
You guys can see it. So one of the questions I always ask when we talk to everybody, when we start training people, and I always ask the room, what is the first, besides name or number, what's one of the really first questions you should ask somebody when they're looking for storage? Because I use this, and Dave Cooper and I have used this a couple times in our presentations. And one of the people at Coast right out said, have you ever used storage before? And I still think that's probably the best question to start with, because if I say yes and I've used storage, I can go down this path. And what size, what did you have before? Do you remember what you had? Kind of go that way. But if they say no, I know I got to handhold them. And we talked about it even in South Carolina. How many times have somebody's running a 5x10 and they show up in your parking lot with a 24-foot U-Haul truck? Or
Mhm.
vice versa, right? And it always happens on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday when the office is closed and they get the call center and they're screaming at the call center, I rented a unit, but I can't fit everything. What am I going to do? And then we're trying to, help out people. That's why having sizing calculators on your website, all these things for you. But having the right guidelines, script, whatever you have, procedural manager for how to handle, when you have this happen. I mean, mine's probably 40 pages long on different topics. How to update a credit card, or what happens when a tenant dies, what happens when this happens. So we have a reference manual for our guys to go back to look at. As we told people, we had our company meeting, I got 5 new employees that have been here less than 6 months. I guarantee you they have not seen everything because, they're not. So when it happens, we make sure that they communicate with the hubs, with the other stores. Pamela, you guys got what, 14, 15 stores overall? The one thing I said to Dave is make sure your managers are reaching out to your sister managers, sister stores, whatever. Hey, have you done this before? And one thing I like to do, I just had a call yesterday with a company in California. I asked them, do you guys share weekly reports, see everybody's doing? Because I'm a competitive guy. I like to know what everybody else is doing, because if Jim's doing something or Garrett's got more rounds this week, yeah, what's he doing? Why is he beating me? So by friendly competition, I think it's a great thing. Shannon, you guys do it in call center where you guys know how your agents are doing, how the agents are answering calls, who's doing this. I mean,
For sure.
Dave, I know you guys do it at Storage King. That friendly competition is good.
With rewards at the top.
And I just put in just to give a tactical advice. I just threw it in chat. So there's a link to YouTube. After we talked 2 weeks ago about, I was doing that role play real quick. I did a whole thing for an hour last Friday where I role played on Chat GPT. And for managers, training, assistant managers, it's great. You just watch it, you'll be able to see kind of real time. You can set parameters of what, how you want to set the call up. But it's great to role play as a customer or as a manager in different scenarios, especially for rental. that's probably the number one thing you want to kind of practice. But it's cool, kind of a different strategy and tactic that's It's kind of fun at the same time, rather than just reading a script. Role
I know
play.
we got Lynn Sykes on here from Sam, and they have, I know they got fabulous training programs. Lynn, anything you want to share? Any words of wisdom? I know I'm putting her on the spot, but it's okay.
You are putting me on the spot because I took a quick phone call, so I wasn't quite listening to everything. So what's the question?
We were just telling you to put on your SOPs, everything you have for Sam, just dump it in the chat.
Oh,
No,
simple, simple. Yeah,
we're
no
just talking
problem. But
about
an SOP
training.
with respect to what area?
Talking about training managers. So when you have to do assistant manager, relief managers, and making sure that they get the proper training and knowledge and education to be able to do that. And we're talking about SOP manuals, you know, procedural managers, site link cheat sheets, anything like that. I mean, the more you can build to empower your people to do a better job. I mean, I know you guys got a great training program over there.
Yeah, we did move it to a digital format. One of the best things that we've done in the past couple of years is have either a best practices section broken down into whether it's leasing, right, or repairs and maintenance, or situations that happen. Then we have another one that's called special situations. Those things that very rarely happen, but they happen. And they're broken down by categories as well. Best practice when you find a vacant unit with a lock on it, right? Like a customer's lock on it. What are the processes? What are the steps to go through before you have to call out and say, what the heck, and, we've made those mistakes just like everyone else, like I'll give you an example that happened last year that caused this. And I'm sure each of you have experienced it well. So we had a customer move into B101, right? When they actually rented online, A101, right?
Yep.
And go down 4 months later, we sold the B101 as a manager's unit. Why did anybody not pick up the fact, that A101, right?
Ouch. Yeah.
Right? So, what are the steps to do when you find a vacant unit that has a customer's lock on it? What are the steps to do when you find a unit that's rented online and somebody hasn't moved in, right? I know we all know the correlation. Wow, if B101 has a customer's lock on it and A101 doesn't have a customer's lock on it, perhaps the customer moved into the wrong unit, right? But when you have a brand new, inexperienced self-storage manager, that doesn't necessarily come to them, right? Or they had it disposed of, right? Like nobody's supposed to be in there, right? So, every single time there's an opportunity to improve or prevent something like that from happening, we've added that either to the policy procedure manual or the special situations kind of area. So it's a quick reference. When we moved our LMS to a digital format that had a search capability, so you could search in there, customer or lock on vacant unit. And then it would immediately go to anywhere in that policy procedure manual that would reference a lock on a vacant unit. So that's been extremely helpful to us. It's no different than like what we're currently dealing with this, disaster, type things. We learn every single time. We have one disaster, we learn what to do or what not to do or what to prepare for the next one. So I think it's always be curious and always try to improve, I guess is the point.
Lynn, you're right. I just did this in South Carolina. Put on the screen here. What happens when you find a unit locked open? What are the procedures you do? I know Jackson's on here from Sparebox, and they got some new technology they're working with. But these are things we talked about. Here's one. What happens when you find a unit that's just, open, no lock, and it's got some stuff in there? What do you do with it? Some people just say, throw it out. I'm like, oh, don't throw it out. But you want to have these procedures in place for, for the what ifs. And because they're going to happen eventually. So having those things and having procedures, and like I said, with Patrick, and I know Jackson's on here, they got their Sparebox new walkthrough tablet that we've been testing, playing with, and we got to get back in there again. But being able to do that stuff and take pictures live and send it and reach out to customers immediately, those things are great. But we all have these one thing happens once in a blue moon, and it's like, okay, I know this happened before. How do we deal with it? And you don't want to just,
Lynn, I got a question for you if you don't mind disclosing this because again, I love digital obviously and been doing that for my SOPs for years, but I'm still on Google, Google Drive and doing it that way. Did you find
Yeah.
a good platform that you can throw everything on there?
Yeah, so we were lucky enough to add a person to our organization. Her name is Susan Newcomer, and so she's our she came in as a training capacity, but so we had one that was called Vision, an LMS program, and we moved over to one that's called Spoke, so SPOKE. And so we were able to create our policy procedure manual, our employee handbook, all of those things that that you need, right? And that when you make back in the day when it was in a Word document or on the Google Drive or whatever the case may be, when you had to make a change to that, it was a heavy lift, right?
Yeah.
So now it's not. So now we can make changes in this digital format. And then when a change is made to any specific area, an email goes out. Each employee gets a user name and password, and they take their training through it all. So all of our training videos, how to rent a unit, how to take a phone call, how to use our maintenance platform. All of that is in this one beautiful LMS system that's digital, and it's been a game changer for us.
Wow.
If you can find the link to Spoke and put it in there, because that's something
I can,
That'd be
and
awesome.
and they're very negotiable. I mean, we pay. I mean, obviously, we're 600 stores strong. However, when we first went to a digital LMS system, we were probably around 275 stores, and we were able to negotiate $25 a month per store for that platform, which is that's pennies when you think about it. And had absolutely no owner pushback or anything like that. But yeah, I'll put that link in the chat here in just a hot second.
Cool. Yeah, because the more, I mean, it just comes down to being user friendly, the fact that you can search it, the fact that you can probably, link and put it embed videos. I'm just assuming it's doing this. That's
I'm
how
sorry, what does LMS mean?
A learning management system.
Thank you.
Yep.
Lynn, when I get to see your smiling face next week at Mid-Atlantic?
I will be there. But I have to tell you, I actually thought about not coming. I mean, but I'm going. But this time of the year is every state association has a meeting. Jim. I mean, I don't even think you're ever home. I think that's a lie. But I just I was in Alabama, and then dealing with the disasters, and at some point, I got to take care of my core job, right? So I mean, I'll be there, but there was a moment where I was like, I really just need to take care of business. So if I can get more caught up, we were luckier than most. But we had 4 stores in that Asheville, North Carolina market, and we had 12 stores in that Tampa market. It's been something. It's been a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
How'd your Tampa stores fare?
Actually, I mean, I was just reading the most recent update. I mean, we really came out. We really only had 2 stores that were flooded, but flooded like 4 feet. So
Oh my gosh,
it was a big flood.
Yeah,
and then we have a outdoor parking area, and the boats look like a jumbled mess, like you see on the news, where the water just pushed them all together. But nobody was injured, right? All of our employees and their families are safe and sound, and so when you think of it in that perspective, we came out pretty well, right? Property messes, but nobody injured.
That's good. Good to hear. I talked to Kevin Liebrick.
I'm just thinking like the coordination effort of what you have to do after a site floods like that. I mean,
yeah, it's interesting that you asked me that, because this morning I was on with Steve Cahill from the Self Storage Association's magazine, and we were doing an article on that, disasters preparation in the self storage, and just like anything else, you learn, right? You learn how to be ready. Like we've learned, you hate a hurricane, but you kind of love a hurricane because it's coming, right? You get time to plan, right? It's not like a tornado, or it's not like a fire. But we've learned, we have a restoration company on speed dial, and we call them before the event, right? So you have your vendors set up, your electricians, your gate people, And we've noticed that if we have the phone calls before the event, once the event is over and you can gain access to the property, because you had that preemptive kind of kumbaya conversation prior to the event, you're in their top people that they will respond to. So just a little FYI on that. So same with anything else. Most of us, like when we deal with a fire, you guys, restoration companies are like ambulance chasers, right? They hear it on a radio that there's a fire or something, and then all of a sudden there's like 6 restoration companies. Some guy's trying to put a business card in your hand when you're just trying to, like, dude, I don't even have time, right? Like, I don't even know what I need. Would you just stop? You're just another something that I got to deal with that I'm not ready to deal with yet. But if you can identify a restoration company, a relationship with one, then it's an easy call, right? Once you make sure your people are safe and the fire is put out, then you can make that one phone call to a restoration company. So again, everything's about planning for the inevitable and having a plan in place. So we were ready.
I'm just getting the visual of 4 feet of water at a storage site. That's just
yeah. But I didn't even take a hurricane in Dunbar, West Virginia. About 6 months ago, we had a 100-year flood.
Ugh. Okay.
Yep. Just had a crazy rain event that dumped 6 to 8 inches of water in this small city in Dunbar, West Virginia, that caused a 100-year flood event. So
I have a question that sounds very insensitive, but hopefully it's not insensitive. Okay, like for that, when you have a 4 feet and everyone's stuff is ruined, does everyone just be like, well, cool, bye, and everyone leave?
No, interestingly enough, it's just like fire. I'm always amazed by people who what looks, like for me, it's a total loss. I'm looking at the storage unit, there's soot, there's water, there's smoke damage, but I guess it's a great parallel to storage and our favorite customers, right? That that just stores things for years. I mean, just years, and don't even visit it, right? Like, you don't need me if I don't need to see it, touch it, feel it in 6 to 12 months. I don't need it. I'm giving it to somebody. If my kids don't want it, I give it to Goodwill. Those types of things. But it's the same. It's amazing. They go through it one by one, and there's a lot of things that are cleanable, right? Because not everything gets fire. Most of it is water and smoke damage.
Yeah.
Right. There's usually just a few units that are in the fire zone, if you would, because, fire, the response time from fire engines is pretty good today. So they get the fire out. So smoke and water damage. So if it's smoke and water damage, some things are cleanable, some things are whatever. So we get a few roll off dumpsters. We allow customers to throw away what they don't want. We transfer to other units, right? That, luckily for us, metal is not drywall. If it was a first generation or early second generation self-storage property, that's a different story. But I'm always amazed at people just, I'd say, I think you just should all throw it in the dumpster. And the guy's like, no, I think I can keep this and keep that and keep that. And even their family's shaking their heads like, Dad, throw it in the trash. Jesus, right? So I don't know. Everyone's different.
Wow. Okay. That'd be my first inkling. Okay, throw in the dumpster, moving on. But I'm curious about that. Okay, guys, we have about 5 minutes left. We'll be mindful of everyone's time, so I want to make sure we address a question here from Jennifer. Is there a statewide manual that will answer probably these questions we were talking about before, the SOPs, that kind of stuff? Or do different states have different laws? No.
Different states have different laws for foreclosure processes lately, but as far as operationally wise, I can tell you I operate in 13 states, and Lynn's probably got 40 states now. I mean, our SOPs are pretty much standard across the board.
But I think what kind of she's getting at is more of, is there a best practices SOP manual kind of a thing? So,
well, the SSA puts out that emergency manual that has a really good starting point. So that's kind of how where we started. So we just purchased the SSA's emergency manual. It comes in a digital format. I don't know, was it SSA or ISS? I don't know, one of them, right? So like a template. Like, I think anybody, like the rest of us, like Jim and I, we've been around since dirt. And if you look at self-storage policy procedure manuals, you can tell that they all started on this one very basic template, right? I think most of us probably got it from Skill Check. 20 years ago. You look at some of them like, wow, the font's the same, the whole 9 yards, right? So the bones of the policy procedure manual in the self-storage industry is probably all very similar. And then you just, as you update going through the years, that's when the differences start to change. But to Jim's point, right, the SOPs are very consistent through that. I mean, states that really only comes to light in like a past due schedule or a lien sale or something along those lines. But for just basic procedures, they're pretty standard across the nation.
Yeah. And I have a bad time out here and look, but maybe for next time I'll find the links. But like you talk about the SSA, they have kind of like these best practices, to follow, so that you can do that. That's your framework, and then you plug in what's individual to you for your operations, for your location, for your corporate, structure. And then you start
Absolutely. I mean, there's no reason at this stage in the game, the self-storage industry, which we all know is a very giving industry, but no sense in recreating the wheel. I ran into somebody in Vegas who actually used to work for us here at SAM and left SAM to be a VP of operations for a group in New York City, which, we were super excited for him, hated to lose him. But I ran into Vegas and I said, so how you doing? How's it going? Right. And he said, oh, I'm writing the policy procedure manual now. And I was like, what do you mean? And he says, well, like starting it from scratch. I'm like, scratch? There's no need to start it from scratch. And, and I gave him those resources, but even from like a lien sale procedure, forms procedures, or, forms availability, that's all available from. And if you don't want to buy it, there's people out there. Like people are constantly asking me in the North Carolina board and the Virginia board, do you have a form that X, right? Do you have a form that does this? Do you have a form that does that? I'm happy to share, right? At the end of the day, like no one in this industry has a key to the Kremlin. You're not giving away any information that no one else doesn't know, right? It's, I may not want to give specific key stats away because, every owner is different here at SAM, but, sharing best practices so the industry as a whole is stronger, better. We get less of the government looking down on our industry. We all should be sharers with respect to that.
Lynn, you're the reason this is an amazing industry, because I can tell you, coming out of corporate security, that is not how they do that.
No, everybody's got to keep it close to the chest, right?
Yeah.
It's nuts. That's the one great thing about this industry.
It is. This is an amazing industry. Do we have time for one quick funny aside, guys?
Yeah.
Go
I had
ahead.
a conversation yesterday with an owner who does not use property management software. They keep track of their stuff in QuickBooks, and his manager, who has worked for him for 20 years, sends him a report once a week of how many people moved in, how many people moved out, how much rent they collected, and copies of the receipts for where she took the cash and the checks to the bank.
Yeah, they're out there. Ledger cards, index cards.
I did in fact ask if his property was for sale.
I was gonna say, give me the owner's information. Let me contact him.
Yes, we all go on and knock on his door, right?
He says
I did one where
the
the guy owned a bunch of trailer parks and then this one self-storage property, and I did an audit. He was thinking of, a client of mine was buying it, but I knew the guy, and I did an audit, and I sat down next to the manager, and immediately her hands started shaking, right? And they were on an old MS-DOS based system, management system. And then I just kind of moved away from her, started looking at something else, but I saw a customer came in and she said, hi, Mr. So-and-so, to be $60. But right out of the corner of my eye, I could see in that MS-DOS system that rent was clearly $30, right? Ooh. So, I did my analysis and I, just determined on a quick 10-key calculator, at a minimum, she was at least embezzling $100,000 a year at a minimum. And so when I called the owner later, he's an attorney. And I said, so here, I'm sure it's higher than this, right? But this is just quick math, easy. And he said, yeah, I suspected her of stealing. But her cousin runs my trailer parks and he's really good. And I thought if I fired her, he'd leave. And I said, sir, that's probably a family trait. They're talking every night. So if she's stealing 100 from your one, he's probably stealing 100 from your 6. They're living better than you and me combined, right? And I mean, so my client bought it. on day one, and they were averaging $23,000 a month. Today, no expansion. He brings $97,000 a month in revenue.
Holy crap.
And bought it for his song, right? Bought it. It was, before COVID, so the cap rates were higher. What a win. Those are the kind we all want to be knocking on the door of somebody and saying, "Hey, do you want to sell?" and hope they say yes.
Yeah.
That's
So.
insane. I'm sure we could probably stay up for the next 3 hours and I'll have horror stories kind of thing.
Well,
Of embezzlement.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When I asked him if he wanted to sell, Lynn, he said, people call me all the time, but the first thing they want to see is a rent roll and who has what unit rented and how much the rent is. That's not on my weekly report from my manager.
Oh, give me his number because I'll go in and help him create a rent roll if that gets that
Exactly.
done.
I can do
Yeah.
too, yeah.
Oh,
Jim,
my
I gotta
goodness.
hop. I got a 1 o'clock Zoom call. I
Me
gotta be on.
too. I'm late.
Good.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. See you next time.
Bye, guys.